tonight, as Jane explained, I'm the chairperson of the Historic Preservation Commission, and I come to that very seriously, I should say. I've been in Montclair about 35 years. Our children were raised here. We live in a transitional Queen Anne house on Glenwood Road, and we love it dearly, dearly, dearly. Part of the reason we came to Montclair, we lived in Rutherford, we lived in Hoboken. I wanted to be in a 19th century, 20th century house. So, lo and behold, we found a house we could actually afford, and it was in Montclair. Who would have thought? But so we're very happy here, and we want to stay here. We want to stay here because of the wealth of the housing stock that's here, the wealth of buildings, some of the research I've done. Driving around town with my children, I would look at the buildings such as the police station on Valley and Bloomfield Avenue. And about when that whole development started to happen, I actually did research into that and found that that was the first purpose-built city hall in Montclair, which is amazing. And the architect that built it is a really well-renowned international architect who worked on buildings in New York, and he actually made his home in Montclair, stayed in Montclair to live, commuted into the city, but threw himself into communal activities such as being on the school board. The other thing, so as I'm doing more research and delving into these things and reading back pages of the Montclair Times, which is not easy, by the way, I'm just finding out so much more about a town that I've been in 35 years and didn't really know that much about it. I mean, I thought I knew a lot about it, but I'm constantly finding new things out. And that's part of the project, this project, the Lackawanna Terminal. When all this development started, I used to drive by it and think that it was a handsome building, not a particularly beautiful building, but I've come to change my mind because I've now learned what the architect, who the architect was, and what he was going after. So, and just the whole development of Montclair and how it really centers here at Lackawanna Terminal because of the idea of the railroad that came into town in the 1850s and really changed what Montclair was, which was an agricultural community. All of a sudden we became a bedroom community, a commuter community. And with that came all kinds of wonderful, because probably I like houses and buildings more than people sometimes, it opened up a wealth of avenues of research for me. So I will begin. I just want to explain that Jane gave a very good explanation of how I researched here, and all of the documents we put out on the table. The blueprints on the right are actually from the urban renewal, where Jane is pointed to, is the blueprints from the urban renewal plan of 1984. And on the left are copies of the blueprints of the original Lackawanna Terminal that were done by the architect and which are now in the depository of Cornell University. I did my research here at the Montclair Public Library, where many of the images are from their database, and also at Cornell. I was really fortunate to be able to go up one day, do a very quick 4-hour search, and realized I should have gone back again, but I just didn't have the time. So after we finish, you're more than welcome to look at these, and I will try to answer any questions the best I can. But I really do want to thank everybody here that's been so helpful in pulling everything. So I'm going to read. I have 50 images. I hope they're all in order. If they're not, we're just going to have to bear with me, but we'll begin. Okay, June 28, 1913 dawned sunny and clear in Montclair, New Jersey. It was an auspicious day of celebration as the entire community turned out to commemorate the opening of the Lackawanna Terminal. W.H. Truesdale, president of the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railway Company, arrived in his private rail car to the welcoming committee of township dignitaries, including the mayor, Ernest Hink. Mr. Truesdale was presented with this beautiful calligraphic proclamation. This scroll, produced by Ames and Rawlinson of New York City, the oldest calligraphy studio in the USA, hangs in the foyer of the Picnic Prince restaurant today. And you can see it as you go in. And looking up Ames and Rollinson, the company who produced this, I found that they're still in existence today, and they're very interested in getting a copy of this to put into their archives. So, interesting. School children lined the processional route, waving flags, as an automobile parade wound through the streets before an extravagant luncheon at the Hotel Montclair, which included caviar, turtle soup, filet mignon, and French ice cream, finishing with Cuban cigars. This event is memorialized in the commemorative booklet distributed to each dignitary, which you now see on the screen. And we also, there's a copy of this in the archives here. So I will put this out on the table, but I just wanted to show everybody how this was really, the opening of the Lackawanna terminal was a huge event in town. And they did everything first class as much as they could at that time.
Where was the Montclair Hotel?
Oh, up Bloomfield Avenue and up on the... No,
The Dorchester is now.
Right, thank you.
No, that's not,
That's the top of Bloomfield.
it's on Crestmont, which runs perpendicular to Claremont. And it's, where Bill Bradley lived in his later years was where the Montclair Hotel was back in the early 1900s.
And Rockland.
Right, that's it. All right. And it's interesting to note when you look at this image how Montclair is portrayed. I mean, this is what was produced for the people who lived in Montclair. You have various types of fashionable cars crowding the foreground, and the little puff of train smoke on the right in the middle ground is the only indication that there is a train there. It almost negates the importance of the train in relationship to the magnificent structure of the terminal. And if you look at it, you can see that it's one of the first representations of urban meeting suburban, which is the big byword now that everyone uses. Sorry. The New York Times of June 29, 1913, commented on the festivities and speeches with the heading, Montclair Joyous in New Terminal. Mayor Hinks addressed his remarks to W.H. Truesdale, who are pictured here, and there's also pictures of them in the booklet, and other Lackawanna officials. He said, in a short time we shall be able to reach the metropolis from this station in 30 minutes. Surely this is bringing the great city near to our door, and it will appeal to many a city businessman who longs to spend his nights in comfortable quiet while he breathes the invigorating atmosphere of our mountain altitude. Additional comments included appreciation directed to the Lackawanna Railroad officials for its broad-minded treatment of the construction problems, which has recognized the value not only of utility but also of beauty. So many communities which are beautiful in themselves create a most unfavorable impression upon newcomers by reason of the unsightly approaches and surroundings of the railroad station. This is a big theme that... Oops. For once, township officials seem to be in agreement. As this quote from the Montclair Times of June 7, 1913 testifies, not in the history of Montclair has there been a more enthusiastic sentiment than that shown in the meeting held in the new municipal building on Thursday evening to decide on the plans for the celebration of the opening of the new Lackawanna Depot and to commemorate the completion of the terminal improvements. Now that building is the current police station. That was the first purpose-built city hall. Notably absent from the festivities was the man who designed the handsomest and best arranged suburban railroad terminal in the United States, according to the Montclair Times of June 27. That young man, William Holt Botsford, died in the Titanic tragedy on April 11, 1912, and his Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western mentor and colleague, Frank J. Nyes, chief architect of the project, took his place on the dais. Hence the music from the Titanic. Pre-Titanic, William Hull Botsford, born in Binghamton, New York, in 1886 on an exemplary life at Cornell University, where he was enrolled in the architecture program. He excelled in wrestling, which you see there, and he won a cup. He designed the cover of the Cornell yearbook, which you see on the right, from 1910. You can see how he combined the two elements, the bridge and the clock tower, into one image, and experimented with the relatively new hobby of photography. And on the bottom left, there's a photograph that he took that's entitled Popping Corn, which is very interesting because I'm sure he had to develop all these negatives on his own. You can see from these examples of his schoolwork at Cornell that he had a good sense of design, proportion, and knowledge of various styles of architecture, especially the Beaux-Arts style, which he demonstrates in these drawings. The one on this one here, he is got a first mention down on the bottom, and there were a few that were mentioned, which means he was being noticed and he was getting awards. Prior to his Cornell career, Botsford spent 2 years working for the architectural firm of Pierce and Bickford in Elmira, New York. This firm, considered to be pioneers in the use of concrete as a building material, played an important role in Botsford's architectural education. William Holt Botsford joined the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad based in Hoboken as an architect after his completion of the architectural program at Cornell University in 1909. The railroad was intent on improving the appearance of their stations through architecture and landscape design. The idea of improving the environment adjacent to railroad tracks and stations became popular in the first decade of the 20th century. Montclair in particular was very conscious of the unsightly aspects of the railroad, as evidenced in this article written for the American City magazine entitled Montclair Beautiful by Park Terrell, a Montclair resident and manager at Columbia Trust Company in New York. He states that a visitor approaching the town by either the Lackawanna or the Erie Railroad get a very unpleasant and on the whole erroneous impression of this suburb, and alighting at either station finds the building and its surroundings unsightly, inconvenient, and inappropriate. More than 1,500 passengers use this branch terminal of the Lackawanna Railroad each day, and both railroads should provide modern stations with orderly and beautiful approaches. If the railroads could make such suitable provisions for serving a largely increasing population and attracting strangers to the town by approaches harmonious with the general improvement plan, the town should secure and develop open spaces near the station. Now these are all images, most of them are from the Montclair Library database, aside from the church at the top, which is a photograph, a court photograph. Montclair, with its socially conscious, financially secure, and civic-minded residents, was well aware of contemporary planning issues dealing with the urban and the suburban. Another magazine article entitled Montclair the Beautiful appeared in Suburban Life of 1907 and lauded the town for its prevailing note of comfort and convenience. That there was something missing. Not only were its roads illogically placed with its main thoroughfare clogged with trolleys, horse and wagons, and pedestrians, but its railroad stations and their surrounding yards were considered unattractive and dangerous. Blessed with a varied topography, proximity and transportation to New York, with a socially minded citizenry of educated bankers, industrialists, and clergy, Montclair sprang into action. The Montclair Civic Association was charged with the selection and engagement of a landscape architect. After a careful investigation, they decided upon Mr. John Nolan of Cambridge, Massachusetts, as the man best qualified by training and special experience in residential suburbs similar to Montclair. John Nolan's report evaluated Montclair's resources, climate, and scenery. He outlined a brief appraisal of the existing facilities necessary for town life and proceeded to outline a plan which would secure additional features to add to the aesthetic and practical qualities of life in Montclair. This plan, known as the Nolan Plan, is considered the first master plan of the township. Nolan's first proposal was, and I bet you can guess, railroad stations and their surrounding areas be improved in terms of safety and appearance. And there's a copy of the Nolan plan. James is holding it up over here. And what's interesting is that, again, there was a big dinner, but this time it was at the club on Church Street. And everybody who was a registered voter at the time, which was only men, every household was sent one of these books. So there's lots of those floating around, and I think the Montclair Historical probably has 20 copies. So here we go. So you can see that typical railroad yards. The picture here is actually from Nolan's plan, where it says we put our worst foot forward. So he was of the opinion that coming into a city should be attractive, and that you should be, coming into something that's beautiful, that's park-like, that's serene, that you're getting out of the chaos of the city, which was dirty and bad for people's health and dangerous. So this is a picture. This is actually the Upper Montclair tracks, just about the place around where Lorraine Avenue is today, because there was a building supply company up there. So now I have to mention a brief history of the railroad system, and I am not a railroad person, so this is going to be very, very brief because it's so confusing. There's mergers and acquisitions and buyouts, and it's really hard to keep even the names straight. So, and we have to do this because this really played such a significant role in the development of the township, with various permutations over the years of what I just mentioned, mergers and acquisitions and purchases. But in addition to transporting thousands of commuters back and forth from New York every year, the Montclair terminal did a substantial business in freight. And I'm speaking about the terminal down at Lackawanna because the other line was a separate line. The Greenwood Lake line, yes, sorry. Montclair developed its unique character from the diverse community of commuters, which included the Montclair art colony. Many of these artists maintained their studios in the city while commuting back to their families in the evening. So this, Essex County, and I know it's very difficult, you probably can't even see it. This is the Montclair boot line going really very straight. And over here is the line that's down the Delaware and Lackawanna, and Western line. And what you can't see because it's off the map is right about here, all these train lines crossed over Bloomfield Avenue. And not only did they cross over Bloomfield Avenue, but coming up Bloomfield Avenue, there were like 2 or 3 trolley lines. So there was a lot of congestion there, and the city fathers, and Nolan especially, said that you've got to get rid of that. So what they did as part of this master plan was to actually dig a tunnel so that the trains would go under Bloomfield Avenue. So the Sanborn map of 1934 shows now a little bit more organized railroad. There's still many lines, but you've got the 3 track lines here, which serve the commuters, and then over here was the freight yard. So you didn't have that mess of freight and commuters getting off at the same time. And that was all part of the 1913 to 1913 opening of the terminal down on, as we know it today. So in December of 1856, the Morris and Essex Railroad extended a line from Bloomfield to West Bloomfield, and the Montclair branch of the Newark and Bloomfield Railroad was born. On January 1st, 1869, the Morris and Essex was leased to the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad, and the former Newark and Bloomfield became the Montclair branch of the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad, which opened as such until 1960. So our current terminal is the 3rd station on the site. The first was a rough affair. These are vintage pictures from that era, with numerous tracks and shacks scattered about. The second terminal, with its Victorian tower, fell out of fashion by the turn of the century, and a new one was sought. William Hull Botsford was hired by the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western, and went to work at the Hoboken offices with Frank J. Knights, chief architect for the company. The company operated under great social pressure to spruce up their railroad yards and terminals in the most economical way possible. It was a consideration of reduced costs that led the railroads and other concerns interested in great engineering works to develop the use of concrete in massive construction. The materials for concrete, as opposed to the use of brick, which must be expensively transported and erected, are easily and cheaply available in almost any location. Basically, it's cement with an aggregate, little stones that are thrown into it. The aggregate needed for the concrete mixture is usually found in the excavation of the building or near it. As cement is manufactured in many centers and its weight comprises a small fraction of the total, the cost of transportation is comparatively low. The mixing and assembly of concrete pieces is efficient, quickly and easily done by the combined efforts of machinery and cheap labor under skilled supervision. Now, I don't know how skilled this is, but it was something I picked off the internet showing how concrete was mixed. I don't know that this is an concrete mixer of the era or if they did it by hand, but this is a slide from a glass negative that from Steamtown, and I was trying to make it out. There's men on the roof, and I was trying to magnify it to see if this was possibly when they were building the terminal or possibly just finishing it. But you can see from this slide, which is one of the first that we're going to see of the old slides of the terminal, that much of this infrastructure still stands. I mean, these columns are still there. This stays is there, which connected to the train sheds, and of course the wonderful waiting room. So the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western embraced cement construction technology, and Botsford, with his previous experience at the architectural firm of Pearson Bickford, soon became their chief designer. The Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western embarked on rebuilding their stations in New Jersey, and Botsford designed many of these suburban stations, including Bloomfield, which should be around here. There's Newark. I don't know. We have Bloomfield, Wassessing, Short Hills, Lake Hopatcong, did Morristown, Basking Ridge, and Short Hills. In addition, he is responsible for the New York stations of Bath, Elmira, Ithaca, Syracuse, and the 2,375-foot railroad viaduct between Binghamton and Scranton, known as the Tucaconic Viaduct or the Nicholson Bridge. Rising above the river and valley to the height of a 20-story building, it's also called the largest concrete bridge in the world, with a rail bed that is 100 feet higher than the tallest point of the Brooklyn Bridge. Ironically, notice of the acceptance of Botsford's design for this viaduct was delivered to London a few days after he departed England on the Titanic. We must remember that this remarkable body of work was accomplished by a man who perished when he was only 28 years old. So I just want to go back because these are some of the stations that he designed. And once you start to look at this in terms of it being concrete, you can actually, it makes sense because there's these monolithic forms that you can see where concrete was poured into forms and then taken out of forms. And this is the station at Wassessing, which has these wonderful sort of flying buttress forms that I would take the train and just never knew that it was so, I knew it was good, but I didn't realize how important it was. He also did the Morristown station, and you can see the little pillars, the land pillars, which are very similar to Montclair. And I think the interesting thing is that the Morristown station is made of, is done in a brick, a beige brick. It has the same type of tiles, the green glazed tiles on the top that are on the waiting room. Those are called Brookville tiles, and they're green glazed tiles. They were manufactured in upstate New York, and they're the same tiles that are actually on the Plaza Hotel in New York. So you know that they were looking at very high-end materials. I mean, in Montclair and also here, it's a combination of concrete and brick, but in Morristown and Montclair, you see more of the brick is exposed. And brick, of course, was more expensive at that time. These are studies that he did that are up in Cornell. These are the studies he did for these stations, and it's incredible that he was able to accomplish all this. When you think about it, really. So again, you can see the monolithic forms, and I just want you to pay particular attention to the combination of light and dark, the very light concrete, as opposed to the darkness of the roof or the darkness of these brick patterns that are in the surrounds that wrap around. For most of the time, he worked on for the railroad. Again, here's Andover, and here's Blairstown. So he was really quite busy. And then this canopy that you'll notice that there's a couple of motifs that appear in his stations throughout the Lackawanna line. So for most of the time he worked for the railroad, Botsford lived at the Orange, New Jersey YMCA while working at the Hoboken office. According to his journals, which are in the archives at Cornell, he started work on the Bloomfield, Blairstown, Montclair, Morristown, and Utica Lackawanna stations in 1910. He also managed to teach architectural and mechanical drawing in a night course at the Y. That's the viaduct. And then this is a promotional tourist pamphlet that was, actually it was 1924 this came out. But if you look closely, you can see the reinforced steel that was used in the center of this concrete, which is what has been done in the buttresses in the railroad station, both at West Essing, Bloomfield, and also our railroad station. In January 1911, he authored an article in this edition of Cement Age, entitled "A Concrete Passenger Station." Botsford discussed concrete as a building material and used the Bloomfield, New Jersey station, which he designed, as an example of progressive design combined with cutting-edge technology. This site, with its dramatic grade differences, proved a challenge in providing all the prerequisite accoutrements, which included terrace carriage drive, which is along here. And he wanted to convey the impression of a village gateway, a waiting room, a baggage room, the cantilevered canopy, which we also saw in Morristown, ticket office, newsstand, and toilets, and this identified an upscale suburban train station. Botsford handled this conundrum by using plain and reinforced concrete in nearly the entire structure. The editors of Cement Age made a plea that concrete be used as an artistic treatment that need not be modeled in imitation of any other building material, nor has it to be covered with any veneer. This quality of concrete is slowly but surely becoming recognized by some of the best designers. Botsford handled the surface treatment of the concrete with different finishes. These techniques include patent hammering, tool chiseling, brush hammering, and fine pointing. And these were all techniques that would be done either when the concrete had cured, that it wasn't quite hard, or it would be done when it was still soft. As you can see, the simple shapes combined with these specific concrete finishing techniques create a structure which relies on shadow and sun to create an ever-changing facade, which is true. In addition to his Lackawanna work, his writing and teaching, Botsford managed to accomplish some architectural work on the side. He entered a competition for a new YMCA in Summit, which was not accepted. This was his competition drawing, and this is what was built. But his design for the Penn Street Bridge across the Schuylkill River in Reading was accepted. And the balustrade, if you notice this, looks very much like the Grove Street Bridge balustrade that we still have a portion of today. And he was also entrusted the house of Frank Nye, his office superior. This period of almost frenzy activity corresponds with Botsford's optimism and is duly noted in his journals. And at Cornell, they have their little journals, and he wrote something every day. One of the entries dated February 23rd, 1910, just 2 years before the Titanic disaster, reads, this is a, bear with me, I want to read it because it's actually pretty good. The history of architecture is a record of man's efforts to build beautifully. The execution of structures devoid of beauty is mere building, a trade, and not an art. Edifices in which strength and stability alone have been sought and in designing with only utilitarian consideration are properly works of engineering. Only when the idea of beauty is added to that pursuit of use does a structure take its place among works of architecture. We may then define architecture as an art that seeks to harmonize in a building the requirements of beauty and utility. It becomes the highest of fine art and the noblest of the useful arts. It touches the life of man at every point. Shortly after this entry in his journal, Botsford took a leave of absence from the Lackawanna Architectural Department. He had been granted a raise to $140 a month, and that's $45,000 salary in today's market. He quickly applied for his passport, and this is the note he wrote to the Department of Interior asking what the process was to get a passport. He boarded the Carson Auguste Victoria, the Hamburg American line in Hoboken on February 19, 2012. This is a postcard that he sent back. He was a voracious postcard writer. Sometimes he wrote 20 to 30 a day. And the folks back home very lovingly compiled all these and had them in photo albums, which were really interesting to look through. So, yeah. This leave gave him the opportunity to travel to Italy, France, Greece, Turkey, Egypt, Algiers, and finally England to study buildings and construction techniques, a grand tour of sorts. This postcard album, which is one of the ones that are up at Cornell, compiled by his family in Elmira, shows his recognition of these unforgettable sights. Botsford boarded the Titanic at Southampton with his second-class ticket on April 10, 2012. His ill-fated voyage cut short a promising life and career. This cartoon, drawn by a work colleague, a memorial shows them mourning a friend from the office. I think that was, it's a pen and ink drawing that's in the archives. So here you've got the discordant, music, doorway to infernal regions, and the empty chair. It's very sad. So the Montclair Lackawanna station was the last station, this is the one here, designed by Botsford, but it appears that the railroad officials considered it his best to date. An article in the Railroad Employee, published in Newark and dated June 1911, calls the Montclair, Bloomfield, and Wassesing stations the station palatial, and describes how these stations will be added to the list of the most beautiful, costly, and up-to-date railroad passenger stations in the world. All three were designed by Botsford. They used concrete in different applications. Montclair is described in this article as Grecian Doric colonnaded water, simple and dignified, and it is proposed to execute this design in the latest product of the brickmaker's art known as tapestry brick, with Roman stone embellishments. So even then, concrete, they were trying to get the word out that concrete was an up-and-coming new technology, but they really didn't want to use the word concrete, so they used Roman stone. And actually, I have to say, when I passed the year in Lackawanna, I used to think it was stone for a number of years. I just didn't look at it very closely until now. The whole, when completed, will give Montclair, this is still part of the quote, the whole, meaning the whole terminal, when completed, will give Montclair a passenger railroad terminal which for size, beauty, and convenience would meet her needs for a great many years to come, and of which her citizens might well be proud. The Lackawanna completed the passenger and freight terminals at Montclair with an expenditure of almost $500,000, and that's the railroad paid that. That would would be $12 million when adjusted to over 100 years of inflation. The work was designed and executed in the finest materials with the view of serving the community and commuters with pride and efficiency. The township was charged, means that they were responsible with building and improving the roads and approaches leading to the tracks. And this is a copy of the bill which is here in their archives. And it's really interesting to see the numbers. I won't go over it with you because I can't even understand it, but it's just interesting to, they have like a pipe in here, which when you think of the whole scope of the project, it's incredible that they would just, add that. So the Railroad Age Gazette of July 4th, 1913 describes the exterior and interior of the Montclair Lackawanna terminal as such. And these are the presentation drawings that Botsford did, and these are up in Cornell. This station is built in the Greek and Doric style of architecture, opening through a colonnade into a loggia directly to the main waiting room and train concourse. And you notice at the time this was open. This was open to the exterior. The walls are faced with tapestry brick, trimmed with marble chipped concrete. The roof over the main waiting room is of green glazed tile, while that over the lower portion of the building is of red quarry tile, the same building material used for the floor of the loggia. And unfortunately, you can't see what's on the floor of the loggia now because there's carpeting down. The walls of the main waiting room were faced with buff-colored pressed brick broken of the blueprints because they're too large and they didn't photograph very well. While he certainly was responsible for the exterior design, as the architect, he made decisions for the interior appointments as well, such as the Rickwood tile drinking fountain. It's a bronze cast race clock set on the wall, and the Flemish bond brick designs, and the Vitruvian wave mosaic border of the terrazzo floor. And this is a picture I found from the New York Times, which shows, I don't know if anyone saw this, but saw it in situ when the benches were still there. But these are now gone. They're at a museum out in New Jersey somewhere, a transportation museum. These are supposed to have been Tiffany lamps. They're long gone. And the grill work is covered up. The Pig and Prince has sound baffles up on the wall. So whether this metal work is still there, I don't know. But you'll see the details for the benches, and the grill work and everything in the back. On the exterior, the combination of brick and concrete make for a subtle expression of affluence, as one realizes that the Lackawanna went to the extra expense of providing brick as opposed to entirely concrete for the entire building, such as what was used in the Bloomfield station. Montclair presented an imposing location with major sight lines to the broadest and busiest street in the township. In fact, Botsford's journal entry of November 10th, 1910 records that Montclair, meaning Montclair Station as drawn, is too small for the Montclair people, and plans for a larger waiting room and train platforms is commencing. So Montclair's leveraging for a larger terminal worked in the township's favor, and that is what we see now. On careful examination, one can appreciate the subtlety involved in the juxtaposition of the concrete and the brick. I think it's very harsh when you look at the photographs in black and white photographs, because it reads very harsh. You don't really see the detail and the color that's here. And I think that that's part of the problem, because I have read accounts that people, including architects, think that this is an ugly building. So I think it's disparaged as being ugly. But up close, the marble chipped concrete has flecks of green. You can see the green here. I think everybody can see that. Which echo the green tile of the roof. This type of marble aggregate mixed with the concrete would have had to be specially mixed from a stone not associated with the site. It would have incurred an additional expense for the construction, something that the Lackawanna officials provided for the Montclair terminal. So again, I'd like to find out, it wasn't in any of the bills that I was able to see, but it'd be interesting to find out where this marble actually came from. the article from American Architect, published after Botsford's death, but certainly written by him, describes the technique used in the concrete construction of the terminal. This describes this construction here. Possibly even more interesting examples of the use of concrete in conventional forms are illustrated in the station at Montclair, New Jersey. The walls of brick, the trimmings are not stone as one might guess at first, but concrete blocks. Yet there is no intended or ultimate deception, for closer inspection reveals a surface that in no way resembles any generally used building stone, but it's appropriate to the nature of concrete. The mason having the care of this part of the work was formerly a worker in ornamental plastering. For all of this work, therefore, he followed the methods of that craft, and at the shop cast his ornamental concrete blocks in gelatin molds. This made it possible to obtain greater delicacy and accuracy of detail that would not be feasible with less plastic molds of wood. After the concrete had set but was yet green, it was taken from the mold and the surface film of cement was removed by brushing it with a wet broom. Thus, the aggregate, consisting of yellow banked sand and variegated marble of specified size, was exposed, revealing a surface of rich warm color, somewhat resembling a terrazzo. Experimenters in this country and abroad have used various pigments for coloring concrete, but many of them fade and are unsatisfactory. By introducing coloring through the medium of carefully selected aggregates, however, permanency is assured, and the ultimate effect is not entirely a matter of accident or good fortune. And the one thing about this quote, when he speaks about the workmen that used the molds in a gelatin mold, I think that possibly it was one of the Italians that lived over in Pine Street working on this, because of the closeness to stucco work. Stucco work with the Italians are known for. I'm sorry it's so hot. Botsford used another subtle reference to classicism on the exterior. The Doric columns, the huge semicircular window, referencing the baths at Caracalla, plus a formerly open loggia, signify design by Grecian Doric models. But he also added a small decorative block, you can see it right here, it looks like Legos actually that's been stuck underneath, under the horizontal beam below the pediment. These are called metulas and are a common element under the Soffit of a Greek Doric temple. The metulae on the Lackawanna terminal building are decorated with 3 rows of guttae. They reference the blocks of wood and wooden pegs which were used in classical construction. Fortunately, Botsford would have seen this motif on his visit to the Parthenon on his travels to Greece, but he had designed this before he went to Greece. What a greater compliment than to be compared to one of the great iconic symbols of neoclassical building in the USA, but McKinley and White's Pennsylvania station, sadly no longer with us, but very much in the mind of a young architect in 1910. And I have to thank my colleague on the HPC, David Greenbaum, for pointing this out. He has very good visual memory, and I think he sent this to me about 24 minutes after we discussed this at the meeting. But where is the Botsford Memorial Window? After Botsford's death, a memorial window was placed in the station, and a local newspaper wrote, "This window will stand as an endearing monument to the genius of its brilliant young designer who went down with other brave men and women on the ill-fated Titanic." A New York Times article from the 1980s also mentions the memorial stone. The whereabouts of these 2 memorials is unknown, but could be an interesting angle to the public interest to the site. Maybe that could be on the website.
Absolutely.
And so the story continues. By the late 1960s, with a series of ownership mergers, service to New York City on the railroad was reduced. Plans were advanced to reline the Montclair branch with the Erie Greenwood Lake line. At this time, the Lackawanna terminal came under attack from the urban renewal schemes which plagued the country. It was based on the total clearance concept. It proposed tearing down everything and offering the developer empty land. predated the adaptive reuse concept advocated by today's preservation and redevelopment standards. Fortunately for Montclair, private citizens and the Montclair Historical Society rallied to save the buildings on the Lackawanna site. The site was placed on the National and State Historic Registers at the time in 1972 and 73 respectively. And in 2003, the site became an integral part of the expanded Town Central Local Historic District. But you see here that this is a plaque which is set on the side that faces Bloomfield Avenue, and it recognizes Marjorie Crane and the Montclair Historical Society as being prominent in saving it from complete destruction. Okay, in 1984, another urban renewal project revitalized the original Lackawanna Railroad Station. This one retained many of the historic components, such as the waiting room building, the steel beams supporting the train sheds, one side of the Grove Street staircases, the horse trough, and the open space bordering on Bloomfield Avenue. Planned by Montclair Center Associates, it has supported a shopping mall and a Pathmark supermarket with surrounding residential and commercial amenities. At that time, the Department of the Interior undertook a photographic survey of the Grove Street Bridge and its existing structures. You can see what still remains. So at that time, it was really in decay. Obviously, the railroad that owned it wasn't keeping it up. And what will happen is you can see this bridge, which was originally 2 lanes, during this time with the monies they got, was expanded to 4-lane road. And so what they did is they took down these 2 pillars on the east side and expanded it to the east. So what remains of any of the balustrade or any of the pillars is all on the west side. But it was a very, there's up here you still have the green tile, and you can still get an idea of how magnificent it was. I don't know if anybody took the train. Probably a lot of you in the audience took the train from there. But there was another question about the retention of the platform canopies, the sort of flying buttresses of the train sheds. In the most current plan, which was the 1984 plan, these would be, in the most current plan, which is today's plan, these would be obscured or destroyed. Jack Chance, Montclair Township historian, wrote in this letter in 1981 to the director of the Montclair Redevelopment Agency. And if any of you knew Mr. Chance, he was an absolutely wonderful human being and so involved with the historic buildings in Montclair. He passed away in 2011, and I knew at the end of his life he wasn't very active, but here's a letter he wrote in 1981. Dear Mr. Blinder, I wish to make a brief statement for the record with regard to the historic preservation aspect of the proposed redevelopment plans. The National Register listing of the Lackawanna Station includes the entire station complex, including the platform canopies. Because of the controversy surrounding the National Register designation, there developed an understanding that the station building itself was of primary importance and that adaptive use of the canopies may not be feasible. I am very pleased to see that all 3 plans provide for an adaptive use of the station building. I feel that they will be an asset to the township regardless of which developer is awarded the project. That's what came on the prints. There are 3 main reasons that the station was considered to be qualified for the National Register. One was its architectural significance, including the overall design, the tapestry brick work, the marble concrete trim, the interior brick and tile work, and the ornamentation, the grille work and the ticket windows, and several other features. By the way, the horse trough at the far end of the parking lot is included. If the Grove Street Bridge is to be demolished, then every effort must be made to salvage the horse watering trough. Another factor was the importance of the architect, William Hull Botsford, a genius who lost his life at the age of 26 in the Titanic disaster in 1912. Finally, the station is considered significant because of its importance as a transportation center in the history of the township. This is where the canopies must be considered. If the railroad is to be preserved because of its significance as a railroad station, every effort should be made to retain its appearance as a railroad station. And by this I mean a station with some semblance of railroad platforms. For this reason, I'm glad to see that 2 of the plans preserve the canopies. The Plaza Group has been especially imaginative in the way in which it has incorporated the canopies into its plan. This plan retains the whole feel of an active railroad station in a booming town, which indeed it was in 1913 when it was completed. The station building without canopies not only loses that essence, it looks naked. Its overall appearance is distorted, and it no longer has the qualities of a railroad station, which the National Register described and which is intended to preserve. Sincerely, Jack Chance. So today, and this is the area that we're speaking about, bordered on Bluefield, Lackawanna, which is originally Prince. The historic district actually goes east of Grove Street and then borders Glen Ridge Avenue. Today this site, known as the Montclair Railroad Station, or the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Station, is listed in the Historic Register of Historic Places, January 8, 1973. The New Jersey Register of Historic Places from August 7, 1972, and exists within the Town Center Historic District. It is included in the Township Center Historic District Expansion Nomination Report dated May 2003. This local landmark is considered, and this is the terminal, the waiting room building, is considered a key building within this district. This designation identifies it as a building which possesses district, architectural, and historical significance, and which acts as a landmark within the architectural matrix of the district. As stated in Montclair Code Section 347, the Montclair Railroad Station or Lackawanna Plaza site satisfies 4 of the 5 criteria deemed necessary for local landmark listing. As a local landmark, the Montclair Historic Preservation Commission considers the site to be worthy of its former designation and all the designations. It considers the buildings, structures, objects, and sites have integrity of location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. So, just to sum up, Lackawanna Plaza is a site with multifaceted historic significance which could be sensitively developed to accommodate the needs of both the community and the developer. The surviving historic fabric remaining within the site of the former Lackawanna Station must be saved and celebrated as highly significant to the development of Montclair. This site incorporates an outstanding building and adjacent structures, the architectural genius of a promising architect who perished in one of the greatest tragedies of the era, and a site which heralds the arrival of the railroad in Montclair. All these factors created a transformation of the Montclair community from an agricultural society into a commuter suburb. It is the reason we are the Montclair today.
I do apologize for the historically accurate air conditioning.
Are you going to comment on any of the development plans there, or do we have to do that?
No, because I can as chairperson of the commission, but I just thought it was important to let everyone know as the significance of the site, the significance of the architect, the significance of the architecture, and really how to appreciate this as being really the defining site of the change of Montclair from really an agricultural community to a commuter suburb. Not to mention the thousands of commuters that pass through this site.
Also, the Greek building, the Greek restaurant across the street is housed in the original livery building, which where people would get off the train and get their horses and go up Gates, which was a slow, curvy road up to the upper streets.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
A couple of historical footnotes that I recently came across. Number 1, you showed the clock in the restaurant. The our time is set at 8:24, and the reason it's set at 8:24 is I learned from the manager, co-owner of the restaurant, is that the Pig and Prince opened on August 24th several years ago. And I thought that was a pretty neat bit of history, that 8:24 and August 24th.
Right.
The second one is I read that article in the New York Times about when the station opened, and I was Mayor Hicker. Someone made a comment at the Hotel Montclair that we shall reach the metropolis in the near future. We shall reach the metropolis in 30 minutes.
Right.
And I sort of scratched my head over reaching the metropolis in 30 minutes. So I looked at an old railroad guide and found at the time that he made that comment, the running time from Montclair to Hoboken was 41, 43, 44 minutes, depending on weekend traffic and things like that. And I sort of scratched my head. I thought, how can he make it in 30 minutes when now the time is 43, 44 minutes? And then it dawned on me that the station was built for electrification. The electrification didn't come for another 17 years. And there's a huge difference in the speed at which steam locomotives versus electric locomotives accelerate. And because of that acceleration difference, the railroad, when it was eventually electrified, would pick up 13, 14 minutes on the time it went from Montclair to Hoboken. I thought that was an interesting speech that he made, and not only that, he said we shall reach the metropolis in 30 minutes, and to him the metropolis was Hoboken. And I didn't necessarily think that everybody thought of Hoboken as a metropolis.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that point. I did not include that the station was built and the tracks were laid out with the anticipation that it would become electrified. It wasn't electrified until 1930, and actually there's a very important photograph of Thomas Edison riding the train from Hoboken, and where did it end up? In Montclair. So there's always been this Hoboken-Montclair connection.
So your notes or your speech do available online? There's so many things I wanted to go back and...
I think we're working through something with the history center.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you brought the, that's great. Oh, thank you. Oh, this is wonderful.
No.
Wait. Let me move this. So this is the original scroll. And you really have to come up and look at this because there's gold leaf. It's all done by hand. It's really beautiful. And this is gold leaf. And did you hear me speak that I looked up the Ames and Rollinson? Yeah, that this company is still in existence today. And they were responsible. They did like Tiffany's birthday proclamations. They did proclamations for colleges all in the area and in the country. I mean, they were internationally known. So it's actually, it was given to Truesdale, who was the president of the Lackawanna, and it's signed by the former mayor of Montclair, Ernest Hank. And here's William Truesdale and his friends and associates. So that was really very nice of you. Thank you.
I can fill in a couple of gaps on
please.
some of the other historical things.
From Pig and Prince.
For the benches.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Mike Crean. I'm the owner of Pig and Prince. So the benches that were originally in the station, there were 4 of them. One of them is in Pig and Prince. It's in the front room. We use it every day. We found them. They're said to be in a...
Yeah, in Stanhope.
Yeah. So they're in a dilapidated,
Oh
closed train station. Those Tiffany lamps still
Yes.
exist.
no. Where are they?
They're there.
Wow.
Where?
As are
In the... Oh.
As are the other 3 benches. The reason why I got the bench we got is because it was a pile of timber. It had been torn apart. And the station has a basement 2 levels down. All the benches were brought in a bay door, and then the bay door was cinder blocked over. So the 3 benches that still exist are in perfect condition, I can promise you that, but they're never coming out because they're so big that they can't come up a spiral staircase.
I was on the fire department, and my group was working that day. We carried them out and put them in the truck. Yeah, they were long, very long. They kind of separated them. We kept them in as pristine condition as we could. We put them on. Somebody had a big rack truck. We made a couple trips, and they were in.
Stanhope or to the
No, here they were in somebody's garage or behind somebody's garage in Montclair for a long period of time
Yeah,
too.
it was stored at the Montclair Times building for a long time.
That's where it was. Yes.
The other 3 are in perfect condition, but the one that I got for free master woodsmith put it back together, basically, piece by piece. They're made of a wood called tiger eye oak, which is a deforested wood, which is really interesting. In fact, if you want to take a look at it, it's out there every single day, big in prints. We also have 2 of the original reading lights.
Oh, where are they?
They're in storage now. They originally lived on the bar, but I didn't want them to be damaged, so we removed them. Those lights that you see, the sconces, they're
The
still
hanging-
there.
yeah.
They're still original.
Did you lengthen the chains?
We didn't lengthen the chains,
Okay.
but the sconces themselves are the original ones.
Oh, okay.
And then
What about the window?
the window, everything that you saw where our baffle pieces are, there's nothing behind that.
Oh.
It's a carved out opening. So
Oh.
someone carved the entire opening out at some point. So those were pass-throughs when it was a video store or pizza hut or whatever.
Really?
So from the backside, you can see that the carving out. So there were no bars or windows or anything when I got there.
Right.
We made sure that the main dining room fingerprints, we tried to keep it as true. We didn't remove anything. We restored the floor, which was covered with linoleum and then carpet. So when we removed both, which had been covered for about 30 years, it had actually preserved the floor. So
Right.
that's the original terracotta floor. We left all the scarring in the floor because I think it adds character.
Right.
Yeah, so go back to that one more, the other one. Yeah, so currently,
I'll hold it.
are you looking to, okay, so these don't exist anymore. These are, sure.
Oh, wait, that's not, here.
These are archways behind, who's not been to Big Prince? Oh, shame. So these are the reading lights. I have 2 of these. Right here. We have 2 of these. These exist. These are in a stand hole. This has been cut out into an archway, which is covered by our tufted panels. These are the benches. We have one of those. So that's that. But the sconces weren't original because there was no electricity. They were gas. So they were originally gas sconces.
Right.
And if you look behind the sconces, the big prints, you can see the gas nipples are still capped off right behind the light. So each one had a gas fired lantern in it, which is kind of, and those are all the different structures.
Yeah, the highlights.
And then the terracotta marble floor is original. And then I'm standing back there. So this is really cool and interesting because it's not tile at all. It's they're hand cut stones. They're not tile as you know it as tile. They're right, but they're not thin. They're about an inch and a half. They're about an inch and a half cubes. So each one of these stones, I have a cross section cut. We had to trench a small portion by a bar. I should have brought that too. But I have a cross section. You're more than welcome to come down. I'll show it to you. And you can see the depth of the stone. So each one of those isn't a tile. It's actually a stone.
It's placed in, right?
Yeah. So the depth of that design is about an inch and a half, which is kind of cool because nowadays you would just think of a broken flat quarter-inch tile, but it's in no way. All this is extremely deep. That marble is, again, because we had to cut, it's 10 inches of solid marble on top of 12 inches of solid aggregate concrete. That's the entire floor. And after 100 years, when we cut in 2011, there was nothing under it. So the entire floor was sitting on the cornerstones. So when we cut in there, we had to backload cement underneath the restaurant. Because in any way, it probably never would happen, but it's 22 inches, it could have buckled in it, you know. So it's pretty interesting too. The whole earth had settled underneath the floor itself, and it was literally resting on the cornerstones.
Wow.
So,
Do you know if that same kind of flooring is in the other part of the...
no. So
It's
where?
not, or you don't know?
So in the very front, where the pillars are, that was filled in with aggregate 30 years ago. That was originally a stairwell. It had gone up. If you go into our front room, when you're in the front room, and you turn back towards the restaurant, all the walls are brick, and it has that appearance of being open air because it was. And I don't know if you can go back to that window that you have a picture of. and in the back as well, where the big doors were. So that somebody from here had posted a picture of so right here. Yeah. So there's two of these windows on either side of the columns, and they're high. They're up here. And the reason for that is because those were bathrooms, so you couldn't see it. So in the bar area, when we had, which was the office of the Hollywood Video, when we tore that up, all the penny tile, well, the remnant of the original penny tile was stuffed under laminate carpet, and it was black and white. It was really nice, but it had been destroyed so much we had to remove it. But that's why these windows are so high up, because they kind of look weird and out of place from the inside. But it's because of the bathroom ceiling where they can actually and then.
Do you have any idea where the stained glass window was?
I don't know where. What's the?
There was a stained glass window, a memorial window to Boxford.
No, I heard you mention that. It was inside the station?
Yeah.
Everything was purple when I took over, because it was a Hollywood Video that was open until 2006, and when Blockbuster owned Hollywood Video. And when they went out of business, the station closed, the store closed. I own another restaurant in Montclair on Walnut Street. It's called Passionné, a little French restaurant. The video store closed the year I opened, the month I opened Passionné, and it was abandoned until my dad went in there and started renovating it. And when I went in there, I fell in love with the building. This is original too, this sign right here.
Where was that? Was that?
That's exactly where it was.
That's where it was?
We weren't allowed to, nor did we want to touch it.
Right.
We didn't lacquer it, we didn't do anything to it. So it's all wood. You can see it does need a little help, which we can talk about later. But that's original too. But it was my mission to make sure that I reintroduce a space that I think a lot of people have lost. I'm not old enough to have ever ridden that train, nor am I from Montclair originally, but I've been in Montclair 12 years now as a business owner, and I felt it was extremely important to reintroduce this space to the community, because it had been through such a long life of terrible places. There was a Pizza Hut, a video store, a Chinese restaurant, a steakhouse from or something.
In the 80s, it was H.O. Gage's.
H.O. Gage's.
And they actually, they had the benches, they made use of them, and their bar was on the back wall.
Okay.
And, but it still looked almost the same as it originally did originally.
Was the outside ever power washed to bring out the colors in the concrete?
It's funny because they're not dirty,
Yeah, but
when they get wet, they're beautiful.
huh?
I have a garden out there now, so every time I water the garden, I water the building. Bring out the color. They're not dirty. We did, I didn't want to go too evasively with any power washing. We do hit it with a hose, and we keep it clean. We never did anything on the inside. Somebody wanted me to sandblast the inside, but I didn't. We just washed the walls on the inside. So some of it looks stained, and some of it looks a bit, I think it adds to the charm of the patina of the building. But this is all original. Coloring needs some help, but if you get when it rains, if you're there when it rains, it's pretty cool because there's also blue in here. You can't see it until it gets wet.
Can you light it in any way?
I'm sorry?
Can you light that in any way when it rains?
I'm not allowed to. I would do anything that I could to bring attention to the building.
Well, you have to come to the town council meeting.
Oh, I will be
We
there.
need support, the 10th and the 11th, a couple of days, because the town council is making decisions on the current plan. Today's Montclair Times shows the opposition to the historical societies, to the master plan, but they're going to move ahead unless they hear people don't like it. It's dreadful.
I sit on the fence on a lot of things.
There's troubles around the
I invite everybody to take a really long, hard look at all of the pieces of Lackawanna Plaza, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there are some pieces there that really need to be considered in terms of whether or not it's purposeful to save them.
Their plans totally obscure the station with a huge building, totally out of sync. It needs support from the community, not just the local residents.
Well, I mean, I live there, and everybody talks about restoration, and everybody talks about saving historic things. I make up about 4% of the total footprint of Lackawanna Plaza, but I make up 100% of the historic restoration. I'm the only one that's actually done something. Therefore, I feel that not only because I spend 80, 90 hours a week there, it's my home, but it is. I have my life invested in it. I have monetarily, financially, personally. So it really doesn't mean more to anyone. And I'm not taking that away from anybody, but it doesn't mean more to anybody than me. And I want the absolute best for the history of this station.
Close the restaurant on those 2 days.
We should applaud you.
Good job.
So Liam, if there are any more questions, otherwise we invite you to take a look at the documents in the back. Be careful, if you look at any of the, if you want to come up and take a look at this, you may.
And there are little blue gloves, latex gloves. If you're going to start handling some of the really historic documents, please put on a pair of gloves.
Excuse me.
Gloves, so you don't touch it with your hands.